An Introduction to Information Governance.
Information governance is a framework that brings together legal, ethical and quality standards that apply to the handling of personal information. This includes the Data Use and Access Act, the Data Protection Act, the UK General Data Protection Regulation, the Computer Misuse Act, the Freedom of Information Act, the Caldecott Report, and here in the NHS in Wales, the NHS Wales Information Governance Toolkit. The Data Use and Access Act received royal assent on the 19th of June 2025, and it will be totally enacted by June 2026. The Act aims to enhance the UK's digital strategy by unlocking the use of personal data to improve public services and economic growth. The Act includes provisions establishing a statutory framework for digital verification services, enabling individuals to digitally verify facts about themselves, such as identity or status, when accessing public and private sector services online. The Act also amends some sections of the UK General Data Protection Regulation and the Data Protection Act. The Data Protection Act has been a long-established piece of legislation underpinning the UK's data protection framework and has had several significant amendments over the years. The Act aims to protect the personal data of living individuals, granting them rights over the use of their information. It also gives extra safeguards for sensitive special category data, which includes health information. The Data Protection Act applies to all organisations that process person identifiable information, including requirements for appropriate security measures to be in place and the lawful use of the information held. It contains specific clauses relating to law enforcement and national security and sets out the powers of the UK regulator, the Information Commissioner's Office.
The UK General Data Protection Regulation, or UK GDPR, was enacted into law on the 1st of January 2021, replacing the European Union version of GDPR. The UK GDPR sets out the key principles, rights and obligations for most processing of personal data in the United Kingdom, except for the areas of law enforcement and intelligence agencies. Article 5 of the UK GDPR sets out 7 key principles which lie at the heart of the general data protection regime. These include the requirement to be open and transparent when we are processing data, and also enhanced rights for data subjects. Failure to comply with the principles may leave organisations open to enforcement action, including substantial fines.
A cornerstone of information governance within the NHS is the Caldecott Report. In 1997, Dame Fiona Caldecott conducted a formal review of the use of patient identifiable information across the NHS in England and Wales. This review resulted in the development of 6 core principles, known as the Caldecott Principles, which apply to all organisations that process patient identifiable information. A further 2 Caldecott principles have subsequently been added. An important aspect of Caldecott is the requirement for organisations that handle patient identifiable information to have a named Caldecott guardian. This person champions patients' interests and their information and must be a senior manager or executive. Please refer to the Information Governance SharePoint site for details of Swansea Bay Health Board's current Caldecott Guardian.
The 8 Caldecott principles are as follows. 1. We need to justify the purposes for which we are using patient data. 2. We should only use patient data when it is absolutely necessary. 3. Use only the minimum amount of patient data required for the purpose. 4. Access to patient or confidential information should be on a strict need-to-know basis. 5. Everyone with access to confidential or patient information should be aware of their responsibilities. And 6, they should understand and comply with the law. 7. The duty to share information for individual care is as important as the duty to protect patient confidentiality. And 8, we must inform patients and service users about how their confidential information is used. It is important that all staff are able to identify information governance or data breaches when they occur, and how to report them to the information governance team. All information governance and data breaches must be reported to information governance within 24 hours, and this is done using the new DATIX or Once for Wales system. Why this is so important is that data controllers have 72 hours to report breaches to the Information Commissioner's Office and can be fined significant sums of money for not reporting by the deadline. Do not contact the ICO directly. This can only be done by the Information Governance team. For further information, either contact the Information Governance team or refer to the Information Governance Incident and Near-Miss Procedures. Some examples of IG or data breaches are inappropriate or unauthorized access to personal data, misdirected letters containing personal data, misdirected emails containing personal data, loss or unauthorized destruction of personal data, and that could be either paper or electronic, loss or theft of IT equipment containing personal data, or alteration of personal data or records without authority. One of the most important tools we have to identify system access breaches is the National Intelligent Information Auditing System, or NIAS. NIAS is a forensic auditing tool that was introduced across the NHS in Wales in 2015. NIAS covers the use of and access to all the major clinical systems, including WPAS, WCP, LIMS, and WCCIS. NIAS forensically examines the audit logs of these systems and will highlight to information governance teams when this access potentially breaks the rules. This will include where an employee accesses their own record, where an employee accesses the record of a family member, where an employee accesses the record of a person living at the same address, where an employee accesses the record of a near neighbour, or where an employee accesses the record of a work colleague. Of course, there are going to be situations where this type of access is legitimately part of your job role, but you may be asked to justify this access if it is highlighted by NIAS.
One common misconception is that staff have a right to access their own health information on systems such as Welsh PAS or the Welsh Clinical Portal via their Cymru or other log-on credentials. This is absolutely not the case, and it would breach NHS Wales policy. Staff are able to sign up to the Swansea Bay Patient Portal, previously known as Patients Know Best, to access things like their test results, clinic letters, and appointment dates, and also to Ask My GP via their GP practice. Information governance and cybersecurity training is mandatory for all staff working for NHS Wales. This forms part of the core skills training framework, and the competency is valid across all NHS Wales organisations. This mandatory training must be undertaken once every 2 years and is accessed via e-learning on the online learning module of ESR. An important point to note is that the course cannot be retaken if you have more than 3 months compliance remaining. Further details can be found on the Information Governance SharePoint site.
To end, here are some general good practice tips. Ensure you follow the All Wales Information Security Policy and the All Wales Information Governance Policy. Links to these can be found on the Health Board's library of policies on the intranet. Ensure you are compliant with mandatory information governance training. Always ensure that health records, staff records, or any other personal or confidential information are secure when you leave the office or the nurse's station, etc. Lock rooms or cupboards where personal data is stored when an area is unmanned. Ensure personal data cannot be seen through windows in reception areas or in consulting rooms by persons who are not authorised to see it. Do not access clinical systems for reasons not directly work-related. This includes accessing your own records or those of colleagues, family and friends, even if they give you their consent to do so. Treat personal, confidential information as if it were your own. And be conscious of what you post on social media, either in a personal or professional capacity. For further details of any of these points, please contact the IG team via email or access our SharePoint site on the intranet. Thank you for listening.